Hi, my name is Sonia Kitterjee, and I'm here this afternoon with Tori Maish. We're here to talk about teens and dating. It is such a huge topic with teens, especially in the Christian realm, on how to keep teens pure today. Tori Maish is a teacher. She teaches teens. She is a part of a youth ministry and has lots of input. And so we'd like to talk about several things today. So why don't we start with media and the influence it has on our teens? So, and what you've seen.
Well, I definitely see a lot. It's interesting. I don't consider myself super old, but even in the time that I've been out of high school, cell phones, every time you look around, there's somebody on their cell phone. That wasn't the case when I was growing up. Things like Facebook and MySpace, it wasn't the case that people were even on a computer every time of the day when I was growing up either. And now you have one in every room of your house. You have internet in every room in your house. And so much is just accessible to the kids nowadays, and it just provides so much temptation. It provides so much challenge. It provides so much peer pressure, and that's just what I see a lot from working with the students.
But don't you find that in working with them, they feel that they're less accountable, so they can say really anything?
Absolutely.
When they're texting, they feel empowered because the person on the other side, the recipient, they don't see their expressions. They just put something out there, and so they sort of lose the power of the word. The word is very powerful, and I think that they take that for granted.
Yeah. And I mean, in addition to that, too, you have very few people who can check up with all the places that you could go nowadays. I mean, if you have your cell phone with you, it could be any hour of the day that you could be on it, and your parents are obviously not following every single message that's sent or received. You have so much access to anything on the internet, anything on television, and I think that also pressures students to maybe be a little bit more risque than they would, or just experiment more, and certainly that complicates what we're trying to instill in them.
Well, also it replaces that face-to-face. I mean, there was a time prior to social media where they would just go out with their friends. They'd go outside, they'd play games, they'd do many things. But now with the social media, they want to stay inside, they want to play videos, they want to text rather than just really have that face-to-face interaction, which I think is really key.
Well, especially it complicates, what a parent can even have as an influence on their own child if their student doesn't want to interact with them as much or just doesn't have the time. And I think it really can challenge the relationship that a parent can have with their teenager during these years. And
certainly,
obviously, these are the times where they need the most relationship.
Absolutely. The other thing is that the communication, as you said, that aspect, but how do we keep them pure? How do we keep them holy? Because it really is all about God. I mean, this life and communicating that to them. God said, well, I read in the Bible, in Psalms, where it says, how do you keep children pure? And it says to teach them the commandments of God. If we lay that foundation when they are young, then they will not sway from it. They will not stray when they're older. So teach them the foundation, the principles of God to remain pure and holy. He is still calling for a holy people today. And I think with media particularly, and with radio and all of this exposure, we sort of take it for granted. It's just so it's so cavalier. It's nothing to I don't know. It's just they take it so lightly. But we are called to be holy people. So our goals as parents is to lay those foundations, explain to them what God calls us to do. I mean, there's a time before they're saved that we are to guide them, and then once they are saved, we are to guide them through the Word of God and to lay those principles. What does God expect of us? And as parents, I mean, that's an awesome responsibility. What does God expect of us as parents?
Right. And I think what you were starting to say as well, you want to teach your students what it is that they should do. I mean, so many times we can get so caught up in just telling them, no, don't do this, and take this away and take this away. And, we could really be damaging in a way, because if we take everything away, what are we giving them as an alternative, and what are we really showing them is the right thing to do and the positive thing to do. And really we find, so much of the youth ministry has been helpful in giving students, if I'm not allowed to go out with these people, if I'm not allowed to date, if I'm not allowed to do this, mom, dad, because of your rules, what am I going to do? Right. And we have to show them God has so many wonderful things for them to do, and God's rules are just not no, but yes, let's do these things, let's grow and be these types of people. And I think that's part of a parent's responsibility, is to say all the things that we should be doing, not shouldn't be doing as well, keeping it positive and just showing the wonderful things that God has for us.
I like that. I like what you just said about making a positive frame, communicating, keeping an open source of communication, and then make that communication positive, explaining, like you said, what they can have in the Lord. He has such wonderful things for them. But there should be boundaries. I mean, absolutely. We as parents are not called to be their friends. We're called to be the parents. And I think that the Bible has explicit directions in how to do so. The mandates for children are to honor their parents, that their days may be longer, and they are to obey them. And some parents, unfortunately, in this day and time, feel that they must be the friend. I want them to like me. I want to be their buddy, but that doesn't really translate well in the context of the Bible. We have to be the parent. And that doesn't mean to dictate over them. It just means to find out what that balance is that worked with that particular child. There's a balance of love and affection, of boundaries and discipline. At different times, they need different things. So having the wisdom to know what they need at that time is an awesome thing, and we have to go to God for that.
Yeah, in addition, I think that going to God and going to godly people, God has placed us in community to help each other.
Exactly.
And I hear of so many parents who are so stressed out and confused, especially during the teenage years. It's like, my students, it's happening. But to be able to go to somebody else and ask for their advice is so powerful. Satan can keep us so deceived, thinking we're the only ones going through something at a certain time, or keep us so discouraged, thinking we're the only ones struggling with something at a certain time. Yeah. And for parents, not just when kids are young, to team up and find a buddy, but to ask people who, when they're have their students as teenagers, people who down the street, hey, you walked through this 5 years ago. Right. How did you do it? And using that as a resource, and again, going to God, going to other people could be really a way to get through it in a strong sense.
So what about this dating? What about dating? What are the parental guidelines for dating? And I think that there's so much pressure these days in wanting, those teen years, they want to be like their friends. They don't want to stand out. They don't want to be different. They want to fit in with the crowd. That means dating. So what do you have to say about that?
I think one thing we've always tried to emphasize is, it's not about finding the right person, but it's about being the right person. So part of something that parents would really be find beneficial is to start teaching, especially the girls, how it is that a godly woman should dress, and how it is that a godly woman should speak and should act. And then to a young boy, how it is that he should approach women, and how it is that he should guard his heart and guard his eyes and guard his mind. And I think all of those things really come when you're talking about the conversation with dating. First of all, just training up, like we said, training up a child in general, but training up your teenage child, those things can't be left out of the conversation with dating, first of all. And then also trying to emphasize that it's being this right person to find another person as well. So if you're not ready to find that other person, maybe dating is not the time, what you should be doing with this time in your life. Dating should be very seriously considered, as a consideration toward marriage. And if we're not at the point as teenagers, where you're considering marriage, then there are other alternatives where you get to hang out with other people of the opposite sex and really get to still interact. But in a dating sense, really establishing for them why that might not be the best use of their time.
I love that. I love what she just said in terms of dating, because as Christians, dating is reserved for finding that marriage spouse, that partner for life, and it's not something that we should do as a recreation. I think that if it is not the season, if it is not your season and you're not looking for that spouse, it's best to not date. And as Tori mentioned, there are other alternatives where you can engage in fun and just group activities that would take the pressure off the one-on-one, because there's lots of one-on-one pressure. And I think that also there are some Christian parents who allow their children to date. It is on case-by-case basis, but to just lay those foundational principles, I mean, explain to them how it is, as you said, to behave as a woman of God, a man of God, and to allow God to guide them and to pray. Do a lot of praying. I love that.
Absolutely. I mean, just to protect your child in prayer is so important, and to keep the relationship. Again, there are boundaries where you want to be strong and firm,
Yes.
but the grace is so important, where if they make a mistake along the way, you're willing to talk through it with them. I mean, the second we stamp something and say, not that we can't say, no, this is wrong, but to say, oh my goodness, I can't believe, you just close the door for them to be able to come to you and talk to you, and you haven't necessarily ensured that they're never going to do something again. And so however we can keep a conversation open and really be able to teach and disciple and guide is really just important.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you. This is the end of our conversation. For more information, you can go to sittingrooms.org. That's sittingroom.org. There are other parental articles that you can read. And thanks for being with us.